Hello, biology students. Today we're going to be talking about ATP. Let's jump in. So, before we talk about ATP, we have to review energy in general. Why do your cells need energy in the first place? Well, because they need it to do work. Work could be eating, moving, anything, reproducing. And where do they get this energy? From food. Even little single cells eat food, just like how we eat food as big multicellular organisms. But the weird thing is that food energy isn't super usable. Alright, so that's where ATP comes in. The purpose of ATP is because our cells do not use all the energy available at food all at once. That's really important. They actually can't even do it. ATP is the helpful thing that goes in between food and how we use energy. So our cells store the extra energy from food in the form of ATP. So as we eat food, yum, 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 yum. We eat carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. We break it down into the building blocks, those polymers, and those monomers, we store the energy into the form of ATP, which will work like a battery in our cells for any time we need energy. And that's why we think of ATP like the currency to do any sort of cell work in our body. ATP is what you use whenever you need to run, think, sleep, breathe, beat your heart, anything that's an activity, whether it's conscious or subconscious, you're using ATP no matter what. All living things need this ATP energy because all living things can't directly use the energy stored in food. They need to convert it to this molecule, ATP. Super surprising you haven't heard of it before, right? So how can we understand this a little bit better? Well, let's think about a gold bar. Could we use a gold bar to buy a stick of gum at the dollar store? Well, maybe, but they'd be ripped off, right? So the gold bar isn't super useful. We have to convert it to a usable form, like dollar bills. Well, that's kind of like how we have food energy in sugar molecules like glucose. All right, we get glucose out of our food, and unfortunately, just like the gold bar, it's not very usable. So we convert that sugar energy into a usable form, ATP. And ATP, again, is like a battery, and we use it all the time. Let's learn how it works. Well, it works based on how it's shaped. And the ATP molecule is shaped in the following way. It has one adenosine attached to 3 phosphates. All right, ATP actually stands for the following crazy word. Adenosine triphosphate. All right? And so the tri in adenosine triphosphate stands for 3 phosphates, shown here as circles. And the adenosine is shown as this boxy rectangle. Notice that they're all attached and there's these high energy bonds between the phosphates. That's where all the energy is stored in this battery molecule called ATP, stored up in these weird little circles that are phosphates. Well, how do we use the energy and release it from this battery called ATP so it can be used by our cells or our body? Well, an enzyme will break this bond. Hi-ya! Karate chop. Right? And when it breaks that bond on the last one, it releases energy by shooting off one of those phosphate circles. Whoa. All right, and that releases energy. I like to think of this as, bam, shoot off one of those phosphates. And then our ATP becomes ADP, adenosine diphosphate. D for 2 phosphates, when T standing for triphosphates 3. But now we only have 2 left, so we call it ADP, 2 phosphate groups. Well, now we have a molecule that only has 2 phosphates. Can we reuse this battery? Yes! We can reuse the battery ATP by adding another phosphate back on to the ADP and restore energy in the form of those phosphate chemical bonds. So what do you think? Does the ATP or the ADP have more energy? The ATP, right? Because it has more of those phosphates. So how do I do it? Well, I just have to add that phosphate back on, and I get back to ATP. There's more energy in the ATP than the ADP. And this is something we'll practice in class. Way to go! The last thing we have to understand is, where is this made and through what process? Well, our cell's energy powerhouse is the mitochondria. And ATP is all about being an energy battery. So it's made in the mitochondria. And it's made during cellular respiration, which is the opposite of photosynthesis, and we're going to learn all about really soon. Nice job. So mighty mitochondria, thanks for making us ATP, so we have an energy battery we can use for all the things we need our cells to do. Great job, guys.